Hi everybody, I'm Julie Kerr, writer and director of the indie, nerdy comedy Geek Loves Punk, and today I'm going to talk about why I like Star Trek. Okay, so here's the thing, complete transparency, I've seen Star Trek the original series, and I'm in the middle of Star Trek The Next Generation, so I'm still catching up with all the Star Trek. I have seen like the modern Star Trek, that's cool. But I'm going to talk about mainly like the original series from the 1960s. I've seen all the movies as well. Yeah, I'm going to talk about why I like it. If you've never watched Star Trek ever, definitely start with the original series made in the 1960s. Yeah, Star Trek the original series came out in the 1960s and it was really cool and I'm going to like totally recommend it. So the reason why Star Trek the original series is really cool, the other thing I want to say is I also met Nichelle Nichols. And she's really super cool, and it was one of the best moments of my entire life. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera. Yeah, right there. That's me with Nichelle Nichols. Man, she's awesome. That's one of the greatest days of my entire life. Me with Nichelle Nichols. She's so cool. Star Trek the original series, like, for sure it's science fiction, and I love science fiction. I would love to be on the Enterprise. It seems so cool. The Enterprise is like the big spaceship that they're on. So, you know, if science fiction might not be your cup of tea, then that's really cool, but it's definitely my cup of tea. But actually, like, one of the biggest reasons I like Star Trek is because it encourages people to be really, really, really good to each other. So, basically what Star Trek is about, it's about how, like, it's good when people are good to each other, and it's like really, really not cool when people are not good to each other. So Star Trek talked about how racism was bad. It talked about how sexism was bad. It talked about how just being an a-hole is bad. And it was about how people should be good to each other. And like the cast was very diverse. It was just cool. And the whole point of Star Trek was that people should be really, really good to each other. And Martin Luther King Jr. was a fan of Star Trek, and that is the coolest thing ever. Okay, and he had conversations with Nichelle Nichols. That is the coolest thing ever. But there will be more about Nichelle later. Okay, so I want to show you there's an episode of Star Trek the original series. In fact, I was in a car with my friends. I was actually in a car with my best friend Carol and her husband Nathan. He's really cool. And I was eating something called a black and white cookie. And it's a cookie that's half chocolate, half vanilla on top, the icing, and then it's just like a cookie and you eat it. And it's a black and white cookie. And he looked at it and he's like, yo, that's from that episode of Star Trek. And I was like, yes. Okay, one of the best episodes of the original series of Star Trek. I'll show you a diagram. Okay, there's two people, and they're on the Enterprise, and they hate each other. And they're spending the whole episode, they're trying to, like, kick the crap out of each other. Like, they hate each other. Okay, and this is what they look like, by the way. Okay, I did a little diagram. So one person is like, this side is black and this side is white. Sorry, I didn't have a black Sharpie in here. Okay, and this person, this side is white and this side is black, right? And in the episode of Star Trek, they're like fighting each other, right? They're like, I hate him, he's such a jerk. And they belong to two different, like, groups of, like, ethnic groups of people on the planet that they come from. So they're like, I hate this person, you know, for whatever. So these two people are trying to fight each other. But to everyone else on the Enterprise, they're like, dude, y'all look exactly the same. They're like, we can't really tell you guys apart that, like, unless they're standing right next to each other, they look pretty much the same. And the idea behind the episode is, hey, racism is bad. And humans are like equal to each other, even if they look a little bit different. But I mean, these two people, they really don't look that different. This is like one of the best episodes of Star Trek the original series. And the whole point of it is, hey, racism, Not good. It doesn't make any logical sense. It makes absolutely no sense. People being good to each other is good. Racism is like bad, 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 bad. Okay, so this episode is like, it's so good. It's in the original series. But the whole idea, there's another episode where they get a teenage boy and he's been on an island by himself for some reason, and they are on a planet, and they bring him onto the ship. And this little kid, he's like 14, 15 maybe. He might even be 16, 17. But he just starts like... Sorry. He just starts like grabbing the women whenever he feels like it. And then Captain Kirk is like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? And he's like, well, like, I like want to grab him so I can, right? And Captain Kirk is like, no, you absolutely cannot do that. What is wrong with you? So Captain Kirk has to teach this little teenage boy not to be an asshole. Sorry. But there's an episode where he's just teaching him you can't just grab people whenever you feel like it. That is not cool. It's really, really not cool. So yeah, and again, that's an example of Star Trek, the original series, teaching people how to be good to each other. Because that's the idea, like gender, race, whatever, sexual orientation, we should all just, people are people, and we should all just be kind to each other. That's the best way to go. Okay, so the other thing I really like about Star Trek is it is like super optimistic. And for the most part, so on Star Trek The Next Generation, so the original Star Trek is optimistic because it's diverse and people get along. The Next Generation Star Trek, it's also optimistic for sure, but there's this episode of Star Trek where, you know, for some reason they've gone back in time and they're hanging out with Mark Twain. Mark Twain is on the Star Trek Enterprise and he's asking about like poverty, and I forget her name. She's the empath though, and I love her character. But anyway, I'll put her picture somewhere here through the magic of editing. Okay. But this character, wherever I end up putting it, okay, this character, she says to Mark Twain, she says, oh, we solved poverty 200 years ago. We haven't seen poverty on planet Earth for 200 years. And I was like, wow, that is the most optimistic thing ever. And I love it. I love it that one day on planet Earth, poverty just won't exist because we're gonna solve it. We're gonna solve it, and everyone on planet Earth is gonna have enough. They're not just gonna have enough. Everyone on planet Earth is gonna have abundance, whatever that is for them. But abundance, living good lives, doing their best, that kind of thing. So I love it. Star Trek is optimistic that the world, the future looks good. The world's going to do good. We as people, as a human race, we're going to do good in the world. And love Star Trek. It's because the optimism is awesome. Okay. So the third reason I really like Star Trek, this is like a twofer. This is actually the third and fourth reason I like Star Trek, but I love the character of Spock. And I love the character of Lieutenant Uhura, played by Nichelle Nichols. And like I said, meeting Nichelle Nichols was one of the greatest moments of my entire life. One of, you know, holding my little nephews and my little nieces. Those are some great moments in my life. There's a lot of great moments in my life. I performed the wedding ceremony for my best friend Carol. So I've had a lot of great times in my life. But for sure, meeting Nichelle Nichols was one of the greatest days of my life. She's radiant. She's absolutely radiant. Okay, so but let's go with Spock. So I really like Spock. So Spock is a alien, I believe Vulcan. Watching Star Trek helped me out a lot as far as Spock. So Spock is half Vulcan, which is an alien, and he's half human. So he's half human, half alien. And I'm not trying to be funny, but basically he's one of the first like interracial-ish characters on TV, and what I mean by that is a big part of his arc on the series is he's always there's always tension between the human culture and his Vulcan culture. And they're always kind of like, so he comes from two different cultures, and he's always sort of, not like struggling, but you always seeing him reconciling coming from two different cultures, and two different cultures that are very different. But so I forget if it's that Vulcans can't feel emotions or they just, but whatever, sorry. But what Vulcans do is they really talk about, they emphasize logic, and they emphasize logic over emotion. And so it's interesting to see Spock. He's always looking for the logic in the situation, and sometimes situations are about passion. They're about emotional triggers. Sometimes situations aren't always about the logic, and you see him go through that in the series. But the thing I really learned from Spock and watching the show is like, I'm definitely an emotional person, or I'm more prone to emotions rather than logic. But after watching Star Trek, like, I started, like, even in situations like, let's say I'm reading the newspaper or watching the news, and I'm like, I don't agree with something that's happening on the news or whatever. Knowing the logic of something kind of helps me think about why something's happening. And even if I don't agree with what's happening, just understanding the logic helps me understand why it's happening, and it also helps me understand what I could possibly do to make changes in the world and to make the world a better, brighter place for everybody. So basically watching Spock just helped me champion logic, and it helped me kind of embrace logic. Like, it helped me, hey, you know, when I'm feeling, actually I'm doing great in life in general, but when I'm feeling sad or angry or that kind of thing, it helps me to kind of think out the logics thinking out the logic of the situation and what's happening and why it's happening. So what I learned from Spock, I actually do think it's good. Like, Spock's journey is he's always using logic and not always using emotion. But for me, as someone who's was using emotion a lot, it was really nice to champion logic and to, help me when I'm feeling sad or angry, just helping me understand the logic of stuff. And understanding the logic of a situation kind of helps me make peace with the situation. Even when I don't agree with the logic. I might understand the logic, but I don't agree with it. But I was like, okay, I understand the logic of why this thing happened, but I don't agree with the thing that happened. So now I know, by knowing the logic, now I know how I can make changes and make the world better. So yeah, watching Spock helped me embrace logic, and I think logic is awesome. And I think emotions are awesome too. And finding Lieutenant Uhura. So you can't see, but I'm wearing a Lieutenant Uhura t-shirt. She's here. Let me see. I don't know. I might edit this out later, but let's see if you can see her. No, I'm so gonna edit that out. Okay. But anyway, you can't really see it, but I'm wearing a Lieutenant Uhura t-shirt. I showed you her picture earlier in the video. Okay. So, straight up, Lieutenant Uhura is keeping it real. She is sexy. She's so beautiful. She's awesome. Okay, and then also, so the thing about Lieutenant Uhura, there's an episode of Drunk History about this on Hulu, but also, I already knew this story, and it's a great story, that Nichelle Nichols was thinking about getting off Star Trek, right? And then she was at something, and she bumped into Martin Luther King Jr., and he told her he watches Star Trek, he loves Star Trek, and he asked her to stay on the show. And she was like, okay. So she stayed on the show. Oh yeah, Star Trek also had one of the first interracial kisses on it, and it was thought as very controversial. But I mean, Lieutenant Uhura, she's so beautiful. I mean, of course, people are gonna want to kiss her. Come on. So there's this scene where Captain Kirk and Lieutenant Uhura kiss. Yeah. Okay, so that's awesome. And then the other story I really like about Lieutenant Uhura, so the first female African-American astronaut, she said she saw Lieutenant Uhura in space on Star Trek, and she saw that, and she was like, wow. By seeing that, she's like, I could be an astronaut. So she becomes an astronaut, and she always thanked Lieutenant Uhura. She always thanked her for being on the show, because that's what inspired her to want to be an astronaut. And the thing I forgot about the Martin Luther King Jr. story was just that he said by seeing Lieutenant Uhura, you know, in a spaceship with a really big job, she was in charge of communications, which is a very important job. So, but what Martin Luther King Jr. told Nichelle Nichols, he told her that, you know, people need to know, especially African Americans, this was in the 1960s, but they need to know that there's going to be African Americans in the future, and they're going to have, I don't know, awesome jobs, and they're going to be in spaceships. Like, basically, the future looks bright. The future looks good for African Americans, according to Star Trek. And Martin Luther King Jr. really liked that. So, yeah, so it's cool. Lieutenant Uhura is, like, really, really cool. And like I said, I met her. And she's radiant and she's awesome. So, so those are the reasons why I like Star Trek, the original series. I'm watching Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm on the 7th season. I'm digging it. I really like it. So, I totally recommend Star Trek if you've never seen it. For sure, watch the original series. Yo, just to let you know, it's straight up science fiction. Just, you know, just remember, it is science fiction. There are spaceships, there's aliens, yeah, but it's awesome. Also, Star Trek had, like, the first depiction of cell phones on it in the 1960s, so it's really cool. Okay, alright, so Star Trek is awesome. I totally recommend it. That's why I like it. And, yeah, I'll talk to y'all later. Love y'all. What is it? Live long and prosper. Oh, I have a Star Trek story. Okay, so I have this Star Trek beanie, and it's a Spock beanie, and I was like at Trader Joe's, and I was getting some like groceries, and this really cute couple, they're like older-ish, and they're, I want to say mid to 40s, 50s, but I'm just getting some food with my beanie on, my Star Trek beanie, and they look at me like, hey, and I was like, hey, no, they're like, Star Trek, and I was like, yeah, so they're like, we just had this cool moment because they love Star Trek, I love Star Trek, so it was just really cool. And I told them, I was like, live long and prosper. And then I went back to shopping. They went back to shopping, but it was really cool. It's like we're in the know. By the way, I've never met a Star Trek fan who is an asshole. Just saying. Just saying. I haven't. Maybe they exist, but I haven't met them. Because, like, the whole series is about, like, making the world better. So, of course, people who watch it are going to be really good people who want to make the world better. So, personally, I've never met a Star Trek fan who is an asshole. The Star Trek fans I've met are always really cool, awesome, smart, cool people. So, anyway, so yeah, so I recommend Star Trek, live long and prosper, and life is awesome, and yeah, stay safe, love y'all, talk to you later, bye. Hey everybody, did you super love this video? Thanks so much for watching. Like it, subscribe it, ring that bell, and leave me a comment or question, and I'll totally answer any questions or comment back. You're super awesome. Do you like super awesome romantic comedies that are independent and nerdy? Then I've got the movie for you. Written and directed by yours truly, Julie Kerr. That's me. This movie is called Geek Loves Punk, and it's super funny and super thoughtful. And it's exclusively available on my website, www.juliekerrstudios.com. Link right here. Okay, so if you go mosey on over to my website, it's a super fun, awesome website. That's where you can watch the movie, and you keep the movie forever. You can stream it and download it. Also, if you go head on over to my website, you can join my email list where you will get discounts to my movie and other products that I have. And also, if you join my email list, you'll immediately get access to my 5 daily strategies on how to cultivate more love, joy, and kindness into your life every day. Alrighty, so you have the best day ever. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Julie Kerr. I'll talk to you guys later.